Rams Up Nation tuning in, or Rams Nation, however you like to look at it and call us. Welcome back to the Rams Up Roundtable. I'm Ian, that's Mark, that's Paul. And please like, subscribe, share this video with all your Rams fans, share this channel, this podcast, wherever you listen or watch us. We really sincerely appreciate it. We appreciate all the growth that has happened this season and all the messages we all get saying, hey, how much they appreciate all the videos we crank out. And I was at the Eagles game, and I couldn't tell you how many people pulled up when I met with our friend Jake Ellenbogen. And people were like, hey, I recognize that voice and face telling me. They were like,
Nice.
you're part of the Rams Up crew, huh? And I was like, yeah, what's up? And I had some conversation with some people at the tailgate in the pink zone for everyone who knows what's going on out there. So I say all that to say, thank you very much. Keep sharing, keep liking, keep commenting. We enjoy all the engagement and talking with you guys, and your support is very much welcome and appreciated. But gentlemen, here we are. And there's some big news happening. Before we recap the Eagles game, share our final thoughts, get into the Saints stuff. Demarcus Robinson, DUI? I chuckle because, I mean, the weekend was crappy already at SoFi, me being there physically, your guys' reaction after, and all of Rams Nation's reaction. But what the hell is going on? I mean, I'm sure a lot of Rams fans wanted to drink their sorrows away, but when it's a starting receiver, you don't want that guy to be doing it, just like the fans. Oh, yeah, gentlemen. Mark, we'll start with you, dude. What the heck?
Well, he's our touchdown maker, and on top of that, but I've had this conversation with my son many times about athletes getting in these types of situations, and if it were me, nothing wrong with going and partying after a game. Absolutely not. And when I was his age, I was doing similar things, but I could not afford to have a driver, perhaps, or just, have someone else drive you around while you're partying. You have the money to afford that type of thing where you're not driving home. And if you are, driving 100 miles an hour is bad enough. And obviously I shouldn't say it's alcohol related, but we can maybe suspect it had something to do with that. And you make bad decisions, and just don't put yourself in that situation. Go out and party. Hire someone to drive you around after the game and take you home. Problem solved. And these guys can afford it. I don't get it. Never understood.
Yeah, I agree with all that. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, that's a situation that's bigger than football. Regardless of what his status is, he has he has a responsibility to himself. I mean, you have to think about yourself, but you also have a responsibility to the community. You're driving 100 miles an hour, and there's someone's mother, father, sister, brother, whatever. Something happens, and we know something has happened not too long ago where that a terrible wreck involving an NFL player. So yeah, he has to be better than that, and not just for himself, but for the community that he serves. He has tremendous opportunity, and like Mark said, right, he's making millions. I mean, it's inexcusable. You can't do that. So he's fortunate that in a way that nothing more serious occurred. So hopefully he'll learn from it. Hopefully he'll be a better person for it. But yeah, this is, and it's interesting how McVay's going to respond to it. I think this is going to be a very important decision that the Rams make in how they address this situation. And Mark sort of hinted at it. It's going to be very significant of how the team perceives McVay in this scenario.
Yeah, to answer that in a roundabout way about how McVay's going to handle it. Well, he did say to reporters today, gentlemen, Rams Nation, that he will not be suspended by the team and he will be available to play Sunday afternoon against the New Orleans Saints. Now, it's not really a conspiracy, but my logic of to why that is that, okay, he was probably truthful to the coaching staff, to McVay, to the organization. Like, yeah, you know what? I was pretty turned. I was pretty drunk. And I just, I didn't blow or take any tests with the cops to avoid getting fully charged. I'll fight this thing in court that you had mentioned off camera, Paul, which is not a bad strategy to get out of serious trouble if you're looking to do that, which in this case he was and is. So I'm sure he was truthful about that, truthful to, like I said, Coach McVay and the organization. And I think that truthfulness plus, this is one of my conspiracy, for everyone out there who doesn't know, Demarcus Robinson's tied for 4th in the entire National Football League in touchdown catches with 6. The Rams are like, we can't score touchdowns. We need that guy out there. And that's probably half of it too. Half of him being truthful, and then half is because he's ultra productive in the wide receiver room, scoring touchdowns, what seems to be impossible for this Rams offense week by week. We never know what we're going to get. So those two things combined leads to him being available for this Sunday's game. And will the league suspend him? It's possible. Will he get charged and have to do time service? That's possible too. By I'm sure anything up there in the Simi Valley area, or whatever county he got yanked in. I'm not sure exactly. So we'll see, but not a good look. This would be one of the last plays I would have expected for this thing to happen. No one was killed. No one was hurt. And I think you can take that victory for now, but no more of this crap. In a season that has enough topsy-turvy curves, swerves, and everything, other car analogy you can think of. We don't need players getting wasted after games, win or loss, causing outside issues and causing more stress for a coaching staff that's got enough on their plate trying to have good game plans to win games. So, yeah. But I guess on a positive note with players, gentlemen, and thankfully this is something that we can all have a little smile about. Tyler Higbee is finally returning to practice after a long time of rehabbing that stupid hit by the Lion safety where he tore his ACL and MCL on a clear dirty hit. And I'm blanking on that Lions player's name right now. Save me, someone, if you can remind me real quick. But awful hit in the wild card round. Kirby Joseph, there you go. I just thought of it right now. And it's good to see that he's finally been well enough to return to practice. Mark, what are your thoughts about Higbee's eventual return? As McVay says, he does not expect him to be ready to go for this Sunday's game against the Saints, but next week and beyond, coin flip, could be ready, and that's good news.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at this point that he made the comeback. He's getting up there in years, but man, I am so glad he did. I've always been a big Tyler Higbee fan. Now, I don't know what's going on with the Rams tight ends that they have. Paul has some interesting stats on that. We're just not utilizing them, and I don't know if it's the game plan or McVay and Stafford don't trust the crew we have. But it's been bordering on pathetic, the production we've gotten out of them. And I'm not blaming the players. I can't really explain it. But Tyler Higbee coming back is going to be a big lift for this unit. And probably someone's going to be, looking for a job in that tight end group, unfortunately. But yeah, Tyler Higbee he's a proven commodity. We know that he's good. He's a guy that Stafford will go to in critical situations. So, and that's something we've been missing. Stafford to any tight end, please.
Yeah, no freaking kidding. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, Higgs is, he's a McVay favorite, probably because of the blocking scenario. And, he does, when he gets the ball downfield, he is known to, knock some bodies. But, the bottom line is, that was a vicious, vicious injury. So how far along he is, it's just absolutely, like Mark said, it's amazing. Kudos to him and just modeling the work ethic, modeling that will that, for this season has been really absent from this team. The work ethic and that will to win is really something that's been absent. So I can see why McVay is excited to have Higbee back, and Stafford's going to be excited to have Higbee back. So hopefully it works out and Higgs gets back into the lineup before the end of the season.
Yeah, and it seems like Colby Parkinson would be the first odd man out, as Davis Allen and Hunter Long get more playing time than him now. So, another F from the free agent signing, like we've talked about many a times here. No bueno, but hopefully he comes back and will be somewhat close to himself. As we know, these big-time ligament, knee injuries, Achilles, it takes a long time for players to feel like themselves. And I'm not saying that because I'm guessing. Players say that all the time. It takes quite some time. Why don't you ask Odell Beckham Jr. and others how long it took for them to feel good after tearing their knees up? So good news there. on Tyler Higbee. But gentlemen, before we get into our final thoughts of this really not good, embarrassing, you could consider, loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, which damn you to all those freaking analysts out there who predicted that, because they were right. And I was hoping that they would be wrong. And But we'll start off with the negative, and then we can lean back into some positive and then bounce back and forth from there. But Mark, who is your negative player of the game on the Rams side of things? Who was a player that you saw, watch either live, replay, highlights, where you're like, that dude did not show up to play and it was a big reason why we lost this game the way we did? Who is that for you?
Well, let me start by saying that all last season, I was so thrilled with the play of our rookie left guard, Steve Avila, and he was nasty. We saw plenty of tape of it. He was putting guys on the ground, and he was just the dream left guard for this running game that the Rams were developing. And I know he got hurt, comes back, and we haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And partly on the real-time viewing of the game, he's obviously, he's just not getting it done. And then you hear the grades, Pro Football Focus grades, commentary on Twitter, just more evidence that it was a disappointing performance by him. And he's going up against some good players in the Eagles, but I just wanted more. I expect more out of him at this point, and we need him. We need him to step up badly. I feel like the last couple of weeks, the only offensive linemen that have been stepping up are Dotson and Alaric Jackson. Yeah, Bo Limmer, I think, also had a down game. But, yeah, Avila's got to step it up.
Yeah, that's a great choice. He was awful. A couple moments that were good, but overall, he was awful. Paul, who is your player that didn't show up in your eyes and was a big reason why we lost?
I'm going to have to can't really single out a particular player. I mean, this collectively was a horrific game. I mean, you and I both watched the film, and we were just I mean, at some point, you can't even watch it. It's so bad. But I got to hang this one on the coaching staff. From the first series, offensively and defensively, even though they were moving the ball, but I would say defensively, especially from the first series, I was just perplexed. I mean, everybody coming into this game knew what the focal point should be. Stop Saquon Barkley. And I, for the life of me, cannot understand what the game plan was. I said it at the rapid reaction, and I'll say it again. After watching the film, I'm even more confused as what they were trying to do. Offensively, I mean, there was that series, 3 back-to-back, 3 and outs, which I think were huge because it left the defense on the field. And I think that contributed a lot into wearing them out a little bit. But, I mean, honestly, I still stand by my position offensively for the Rams. I know the fumbles were tough, but you got to stick with the ground game. And they were moving the ball in the air. I think they could have taken it at the Eagles' corners. And the underneath stuff was there all game. We've been saying it for weeks. The underneath stuff is there all game. There is no reason to have Stafford take those hits. It's there all game. And more importantly, on those half rolls, he was getting out there and he was throwing dimes. And it was when he was sitting in the pocket like a statue, when he was, he was a target. When he was moving around, he was throwing dimes. So there was no cohesiveness in this game plan, and that's why it fell apart in the second half. They kept it close in the first half, but then you saw it just come apart in the second half.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, and I'll share my thoughts right now on who's my negative player of the game. And I'm kind of also going to cheat a little bit too, like Paul there, where, man, the whole line was just awful. Now, there's a couple players on the O-line who weren't bad, and I'm sure one of you guys will share your thoughts on that shortly. But as a whole unit, wasn't good enough. Run game, crappy, other than a couple times. Pass blocking, crappy. We got our own linemen running into each other, getting confused on simple stunts, and it just is like, oh my goodness, guys, this isn't any crazy twist that the D linemen are doing here, and you guys are running into each other like a cartoon. Not good. backups, not even Jalen Carter and others, Grams. There was backups you would consider, well, I mean, who are starting in this game for the Eagles D-line, who are mauling a Steve Avila, mauling a Bo Limmer, mauling a Warren McClendon, who I get as a backup. But, unfortunately, we got the Lions and Arizona Cardinals game version of Warren McClendon, where he just was flat out not good. That, and then I'll also combine this with the offensive game plan. Because at a certain point, and I'm going to keep hammering this thought and this notion until I'm Rams blue in the face. All right, everyone? The playbook sucks. The offensive playbook sucks. Half the league runs a version of this West Coast modern offense where you want to say it's a Shanahan offense, or you want to say it's a Holmgren offense, or whatever the roots of it you want to go to. Half the league runs it. All the coaches that have left Shanahan with the Niners, all the coaches that have left us, all the coaches that have left with LaFleur, and whoever else. It's everywhere. So you have to be more diverse. And I'm so tired of it, gentlemen. I'm going to read off some things to you real quick. We ran 11 personnel 99% of the time this game. We only ran 12 or any other grouping one time in this game. We ran 0 jet sweeps, and we only had 3 runs that were different other than inside, outside zone, or duo this game. Unacceptable. Also, 0 tight end screens again. 0 running back screens again. I don't understand why we think that we can just line up and do the same 50 plays in different variations and think that's just going to work. Half the league knows this offense. And when you're also not being diverse with the types of plays that a professional team should run, you're setting up your O-line to have a bad day like they did. And you're setting up your team to have all these losses, whether starters are healthy or starters are not healthy. So I blame it on the O-line for their play. And I also blame Coach McVay and the offensive staff for not adjusting or for just not having a professional game plan against defenses week in and week out. We see a good game and then we see weeks of the same old crap. So my negative player is the entire O-line, Sean McVay, and the offensive staff. It was just one giant disaster. And golly, that's irritating, everything I just read off to you guys. Ridiculous. High school coaches could have more diversity than what we've seen from the Rams this season. Ridiculous. So with that said now, we'll dip our heads, our Rams horns, into the positive. So Mark, who is a player that you saw, or coach or coaching staff, because now me and Paul have dipped into that, who you saw or watched and said, you know what, that dude was ready to go, and he was a big reason why we were even going to have any chance at all of winning this game? Who is that for you?
For me, it's got to be Puka. But you could say that about him virtually every game. He's getting to that point where, back in the day when I was doing the podcast by myself a lot, I didn't give game balls to Aaron Donald. You just kind of like, yeah, Aaron Donald, sure, and you find someone else to give a game ball to, and it's kind of that way with Puka now. He is a warrior. You can tell this game means a lot to him. Every game, every snap means a lot to him, and he plays with such physicality. And he did it again. He had a couple of catches that would have been just incredible, and he just missed them. But the effort's there, and he still yards after catch every time. Great hands, great blocking, great performance.
Yeah, and to that, I'll read the stat. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. LA Rams PR, who always has fun stats to crank out during the game or after the game. They say here, via X, formerly Twitter, wide receiver Puka Nacua surpassed 2,000 scrimmage yards in his 23rd career game. He is the 5th wide receiver in NFL history to reach at least 2,000 scrimmage yards in 23 games or fewer, joining Charlie Taylor in 20, Bill Groman in 21, our old Super Bowl champion friend OBJ 21, and Charlie Hennigan in 22. He is also the 5th Rams player to reach 2,000 career scrimmage yards in 23 games or fewer, joining Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, Jerome Bettis, Hall of Famer, Lawrence McCutcheon, a great number 30 running back people forget about before Todd Gurley, and then Todd Gurley himself. So Nakua is he's that guy. Great pick, Mark. And Paul, who is your player that you saw after watching the film, rewatching the game, sitting on it, sleeping on it, that you said, you know what, that guy showed up and was ready to play for that game and helping them possibly get a win?
And before I nominate that player, one other positive, we were all talking about it, all those positive posts on X. Shout out to the Ramley out of the pink area, representing hard. That's what's up. But I'm gonna go with K-Dot. K-Dot was doing work, especially early in the game. He and Limmer, when they had Carter on their side, they were just shutting it down. They were opening up the lanes. They were pass blocking. So I'm going to go with K-Dot. For me, he's been the one constant for the Rams this year. His physicality in the pass game as well as the run game, he just brings it every week. Just a pure professional. This is where the free agent money went, and this is the type of player they should have spent their money on. So this is how you do it. And he's just, once the Havenstein Monster comes back, that right side is going to be solidified again. The Rams are going to be in decent shape. But, shout out to K-Dot, way to do work. And shout out to GNX. That's the way to drop that album.
Shout out to K-Dot and from LA. Shout out to the Rams, K-Dot. Yes, indeed. And I know I hammered the O-line earlier, but I mean, individually on his thing, he was not a reason why things went disastrous, and couldn't agree more with everything you said there, for sure, Paul. Good pick. And for my positive player, I'm going to go with somebody who should have been on the field a lot more. And shout out to you, Paul, off camera. You reminding me of this stupid reality that we had Bobby Brown having more snaps than Braden Fisk. What the hell were we doing in this game? So he's my positive player because he's the only one on the D-line that was consistently showing up. And yes, he got bulldozed a couple times by Dickerson and others. But overall, he looked like he was ready to go, getting the only sack on Jalen Hurts. And gentlemen, he's fantastic, isn't he? I mean, he should be over Quinyon Mitchell, I believe, at this point for Defensive Rookie of the Year odds. Him and Jared Verse should be the top two guys, both Rams guys. So I'll read the stat again from LA Rams PR on X, formerly Twitter. Defensive end, D-tackle, Braden Fisk joined Shaquille Leonard, or remembered him as Darius Leonard from his time with the Colts, as the only player since 2000 to record at least 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries through a player's first 11 career games. Wow. He also surpassed his teammate Byron Young, Aaron Donald, Robert Quinn for the most sacks by a Rams player through their first 11 career games, with his sack on Jalen Hurts in the early part of the Sunday night game. So, again, for everyone who hated the trade, you were wrong. For everyone who continues to hate the trade, come on now. Stop it. Whether you're a football fan, Rams fan, and a lot, this trade was worth it. I assume and I predict it'll continue to be worth it as the years come on and he gets better and better. But if you're making history like this and you're surpassing Aaron Donald, who won Defensive Rookie of the Year at this point in the season, holy crap. So he's my positive player of the game. And there's others on defense I think showed up. But with Braden breaking history, I thought I had to shout, I had to shout him out on this for sure. So,
hey, and I got to say, you're talking about the trade that we made, and how about the trade we didn't make, that trying to go up and get the Murphy that ended up with the Seahawks. That was actually a blessing in disguise, I think, because if we had made that trade, I don't think we have Verse or Fisk.
Yeah. I mean, think about those, alternate timelines where we could have experienced and be living right now with you guys tuning in, or the alternate timeline where we make those big Carolina trades, right? Give up the farm for Burns, give up a lot for McCaffrey. So a lot of the trades that didn't happen have benefited the Rams greatly. So I appreciate the aggressiveness, the McSneed combo, but a lot of their missed opportunities have been better for the Rams. And I'm grateful we live in this timeline where we get to enjoy the young guys kicking ass. So with all that said, the positive, negative of our player picks of the game, gentlemen, we got to go through your final thoughts on this Rams 20-37 loss versus the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. It's the last time we'll talk about it. We got to move on just like the players and the coaches and the organization does. So, Mark, what are your final thoughts on this crappy loss in front of the nation?
Yeah, it was a weird game in that as we watched the first couple series, like I'm thinking the Rams are going to do this. The Rams have what it takes to beat this team, and then the fumble, and then that late touchdown by the Eagles, and we just kind of fell apart after that. And I don't. I was kind of embarrassed watching this game, national television. And we just don't play well on national television, it seems like. And I just wanted to put the game in the rearview mirror. Interesting. I react to these games a little bit differently. I know a lot of people say I was so stressed. Oh my god, I was so bummed out, and I got over it pretty quickly. I didn't find it nearly as stressful as those games where some of these other games we've had that go down to the wire. We win at the end or we lose at the end. This game was just kind of like, let's get this over with, move on to New Orleans. It kind of sucked.
Yeah, it sucked. What about you, Paul? What are your final thoughts on this crappy loss in front of the nation?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got to throw the stats out the window, and you got to trust what you see. And when you see it, I mean, there were a lot of positives, man. The passing game, Stafford to the wide receivers, man, that's a constant. Like Mark said, Cup and Puka Yakua and D-Rob. But the things that they're not doing well are just so glaring and on so many different levels. And defensively, it was just a disaster. So what they're not doing well is just at such a poor level. And what they are doing well is really reserved to one or two areas, and the running game was going. And I know that fumble was tough and the second one was tough, but you got no chance. You got no chance if you don't stick with the running game. And that's what happens. You can't lose confidence in the running game. And I'll say it this way. If Puka Yakua drops a ball, they don't stop the passing game. So why is that philosophy stuck on the running game? So they're definitely that's an interesting scenario. I think there's a definite bias there, leaning, and that's okay because Stafford had a great game. If you look at the numbers, he took some vicious hits, but what they're not doing well is so glaringly bad that it just corrupts everything else. But there are definitely some positives there. But the one thing that was really upsetting to me was the lack of physicality. And I said it before the game. I said, the Eagles are going to throw down the gauntlet. They want to see if, because it's right from the Detroit game. Detroit gave everybody the blueprint, 2 games in a row, the playoff game and that week 1. Cardinals followed up right after that. In week 2, threw up 231 on the ground. So, it is what it is. But that the lack of physicality is what really stood out for me.
Yeah, no bueno on that. And I know I started getting a little angry when I was going through my negative players of the game and coaching staff, and that'll teeter into my final thoughts here. The game plans just were stupid. Lack of play diversity, like I stated earlier. Same old stuff over and over and over again. The facade of us being a running team is in full display, right? All the investment you make and yada. And we know Jonah Jackson didn't work out, but what a lie that was to all of Rams Nation that they were going to be a run first smash mouth team. What a joke. This team drop back passes more than anybody in the league in terms of play design. I don't know about passing in total, but in terms of passing concepts, it's all 5-step, 7-step, deep developing plays. And I get it. When you have Stafford, you got to give him a chance to sling it, and he can sling it. But that shouldn't have been the identity of this team as it continues to be since week 1 and beyond. I mean, nothing has changed, and that's why we are where we are with the record. And we're just, luckily the whole West sucks in a grander scheme of things. So really unfortunate. Defensively, how many players played over others, terrible idea, as we talked about Braden getting less snaps than others. Like, what are we doing here? Darius Williams had a rough time, but I can go down swinging if you put our best corner on their best receiver. And if he gets us, then he gets us. And that happened a bunch. It was just one of those days where an all-pro receiver beat up on a Pro Bowl-ish level corner, and that's what happened. Unfortunate. But like Kobe Turner said after the post game, that they were switching up defensive schemes to hopefully play better against the Eagles. They should have just kept what they were doing, what was working. And that's another coaching failure that I know you've elaborated a ton, Paul. And it's just, this team's just mid. That's really it. This team's mid. If they finished with 10 wins, which is the goal that needs to happen for this team to get in the tournament, which I'll be shocked if they do it, but it's in them. They have the teams or the players to do it. I'll believe it when I see it. But this team is just mid, for everyone who uses that term or likes that term. Or if you don't like it, that's what this team is. They're just mid. Coaching job this year is mid. Player execution level is mid. And that's what we saw against a good team. Mid versus good. You get an ass kicking like you saw on Sunday night. But on a positive, shout out to everybody that I talked to in the Pink Zone tailgating, everyone who recognized me, everyone who shouted out Rams Up podcast here. So I appreciate that. And I'll hopefully be there for a couple more games coming up soon. But those are my final thoughts. And real quick, Eagles fans outnumber the hell out of Rams fans this game. I don't care what anybody says. 50-50? Nah. 60-40 if we're being generous. Eagles over Rams fans. And there's a lot of Eagles fans that flew out from Philadelphia that I had conversations with. So I get it. Avoid the winter time coming up in Philadelphia. Come vacation out here in SoFi. And many have elaborated that point in the Rams universe. So I won't go into details. But don't kid yourselves. That was not a home field advantage. And that had a factor into the outcome of the game. So those are my final thoughts, gentlemen. Man, oh man, I can't wait to just move on like the Rams players have to do. But before we do that, you know how we got to get into it, Paul? We got to talk about your building blocks, or should I say your stumbling blocks. Yeah.
and a perfect segue, Ian. Who is the Rams' second leading rusher in this game? Well, we know Kyron Williams was the leading rusher. Who was the second leading rusher for the Rams? Just talk about your lack of commitment to the running game. Matthew Stafford. He had the same one carry for 15 yards because Blake Corum had one carry for 5 yards. So if you add this up, the Rams had a total of 18 rushes in this game. So the score pretty much reflects that lack of commitment to the running game. So as everyone remembers from Ram Nation from last week, we did the building blocks, and I had pretty much wrapped it around three things. I said the tackling was going to be crucial in this game. The physicality was going to be crucial in this game, right? And the rush defense was going to be crucial in this game. And it wasn't just specific to this game. And so that's one thing I want to point out is that we have been saying this from the beginning. We have been highlighting the glaring deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball. So this is not just a reaction to the Eagles game, but this is just in the totality of the season in terms of what has happened. So let's just take a look at it. The Rams gave up 312 rushing yards to the Eagles. 312 yards. So if you
take one more time for everyone out there.
312 rushing yards.
Awful.
There are teams that don't have 312 total yards in a game. And so the Eagles had 312. So if you take Saquon Barkley, right, he had on his own, if you include rushes and receptions, he had 300 yards. He was averaging 10 yards a touch. 10 yards a touch in the game. For the one player that the entire game plan should have focused around to stop, he had the game of his life. So immediately, that's a major issue. But this is just not an anomaly, like everyone may think. This is not an anomaly. They gave up 231 to the Cardinals in week 2. They gave up 163 to the Lions in week 1. And they gave up 130 and change to the Niners. They have given up this year 100 plus rushing yards in 9 of 11 games. They've given up 20 or more points in 10 of 11 games. So this is nothing new for this defense. This defense has not played well all season. The part that is frustrating to me, which is why I lean towards, really sort of pointing the finger at the coaching staff, is if you look at the number of plays that the Rams have that are quality players in the defensive unit, this is not sort of like, we have a barren unit. This is actually a very talented unit with rookies and established veterans. And to play at this, just ineffective level is just inexcusable. So let's take a look at some of this for a second. In this game, they had 312 rushing yards allowed, 15 missed tackles. If there is a theme for this season, and it has been the atrocious tackling that has just been the hallmark of this defense since week 1. 0 takeaways in this game. And we had said one of the building blocks is have to generate more takeaways. So you put all this together, the dominance on the ground, the missed tackles, the poor D-line play when it comes against the rush, the poor gap discipline. One of the, obviously we watched tape, and one of the long runs by Saquon, Verse he just didn't set the edge. He was 4 yards inside of the tight end, 4 yards inside of the tight end. And Curl just could not, get around in time to hold the edge, and Bark was gone. So little things like this, the lack of discipline in setting the edge is another feature of this defense that has just plagued them all season. BY, Hollywood, whoever is Verse on the edge, they do not do a good job of setting the edge and playing discipline on the outside. It just helps this defense just falls apart. So if you take a look at the season numbers, they are averaging 144 rushing yards a game. That is what they're giving up. That's 28th in the league, right? So in comparison, in terms of their own rushing game, look at that disparity there. You're averaging 50 yards. You're a minus 50 in the rushing game. Think about that for a second. A minus 50 right off the bat on the ground. Okay, the point differential, 25-21. They're still giving up a ton. The Rams have ticked it up. They've gone over the last couple of weeks. They've gone from 19 and change. They're up to 21 now. But still, you're looking at a 4-point differential, but a 50-yard differential on the ground. Just, you're behind the 8 ball in every game. That's just the way you have to look at it. And the slow starts do not help at all. The Rams versus the Eagles, something that has plagued this offense. So you talk about stumbling blocks on defense. The major stumbling block on offense that we pointed out last week was the Rams were 0-8 on third down. There is some type of mental block here. The Rams on third down, I do not understand what is happening. They just are a different team on third down. It almost looks like they're trying to get that first down and second down so they don't have to get to third down. And I think part of the issue is that on third down, they are so, I guess, the only word is they have an aversion to throwing it short and taking what's there, that they're trying to look downfield on third down, and that's when they're, having their difficulties because they're just not in tune of taking advantage of that quick hit short passing game. So, and also without the benefit of screens, without the benefit of the quick, or the late release of the tight ends, that really puts you once again in a, you want to have high efficiency, high percentage passes on third down. So this conversion rate is second to last in the NFL. That says it all right there on the offensive side of it. So yes, they're scoring points, but that's why they're having these spurts in games where they have those 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. So that's why, and that's the nature of the Rams this season, those peaks and valleys. So the other really disturbing aspect of this offense is, and I put the numbers up there just for comparison. If you take a look at the Rams' total tight ends for the entire season, all 3 tight ends, they total 36 receptions, 1 touchdown. They are averaging 29.5 yards a game for the season, Ram Nation. You look at the running backs, 29 receptions, 2 touchdowns. They're averaging 15.1 yards a game. So if you average it out, it comes out to a total of 65 receptions for under 500 yards for the season. That comes out combined. That's running backs and tight ends, Ram Nation, for the Rams, 44.2 yards a game. That's their contribution to this offense. So when we say that this offense is wide receiver centric, it's not a matter of opinion. The numbers speak for themselves. And for defenses, that's pretty easy to figure out. And that also contributes to this third down inefficiency. So just to give you a little bit of a contrast, Brock Bowers, right, his numbers in comparison to the totals that I just shouted out, 74 receptions, 744 yards, and 3 touchdowns for a 67.5-yard average. So he has outperformed all the Ram tight ends and running backs combined as a rookie. That says it all. That says it all. And just in closing, and why I say stumbling blocks, the Rams made no moves at the trade deadline. I made it pretty clear that, I was advocating bring in a D tackle, right? You're not going to be able to survive the season with this rush defense. So we had to wait for the Eagles, right, to embarrass the Rams on national TV for them to realize that you're not going to be able to roll this team out there. And the way it sort of plays itself out now is if I was an offensive coordinator in the NFL, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run the ball. I'll tell you why. Not only am I going to get yards, Braden Fisk has to stay off the field. He only got in 44% of the snaps because they have to rotate the D tackles. Yeah. So there you go. By the sake of running the ball, you're going to force, right, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, and some of the other Hoyt off the field because they have to stay fresh and they have to rotate. And you're going to put players who are not in that same caliber, like Bobby Brown, onto the field for more reps. And there's your domino effect. And offensive coordinators have probably figured this out, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And that's just going to take away from that, high pressure rate and that attack mentality of this defense. So that's number one. And, the other thing that we have to take a look at is the lack of leadership and the tone setters on defense. That's huge. Coach Henderson, when he was here, he talked about that dog mentality. We lost EJ, you lost AD. The Rams' failure on their part is not to have brought in a veteran to bring in that edge, and to take nothing away from the conductor. That dude is doing work. To take nothing away from these young rookies. They're rookies still. There has to be a presence in that locker room. So I ask you, Ram Nation, who is that nasty presence in the locker room? Exactly. That is the black hole in this defense. And for them not to have made a move at the trade deadline, not to have given Coach Henderson that DC job is now haunting them, right? Chris Shula is completely overmatched in this game. And it's not just this game. Look at the pattern on defense. So this is a major issue on defense. And I still say that you can save face, you can salvage the season, bring in a consultant, call it a consultant, you save face, no one has to look bad. And teams do it all the time. Look at Green Bay, like I said, they brought in Saleh. You think Saleh's game planning offense over there? He's not a way. He's contributed to that defense. So that's what they got to do, because right now they are not going to survive the season. They're going to get gashed again. So right now it's not building blocks, it's stumbling blocks. They got a lot of work to do. But going into the Saints game, there are some positives that they can build on. But right now, it's a lot of pitfalls awaiting them.
Woo! That's big as a truth bomb as could possibly have been dropped for everyone tuning in here, Paul. That was a good job there, man. And the good thing is that the Western Division is still up for grabs, which is crazy. So hopefully there will be some blocks to build upon and feel good in the future weeks ahead. But well said there, my friend. And
yeah, I was just going to say real quickly, sorry, the things that you're talking about at the end there, it seems to me that Ernest Jones would have been that guy, right?
Yeah.
And so one of these days we'll figure that out.
And now he's playing good for our rival in the Seahawks. Right. It's just this has been so many offseason things that have just totally screwed this team. It's why we are where we are. But where are we headed? Well, gentlemen, we're going to go play the Saints in the afternoon in Week 13. That's where we're headed to. Got to move on, learn from the bad, improve upon the good, and that's just any team has to do that, and especially this Rams team. And gentlemen, we'll go through real quick the history between these two teams, wins and loss, since the year 2000, as we like to do, because this head-to-head that we have, it's pretty dang close, truthfully. So here's our Rams versus Saints history. We've been playing them quite a bit since the year 2000. There's the famous playoff game where Warner threw 3 interceptions and we lost in the playoffs. The opposing quarterback, who I'm blanking on his name right now, threw 4 touchdowns and we got upset in the hopeful back-to-back greatest show on turf season. We played each other in the famous, infamous, depending on who you ask, NFC Championship game for the 2018 season in that 2019 NFC Championship, where, there may or may not have been PI, but I say that jokingly, half jokingly.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah. So there's that game, and there's been tons and tons of regular season games that have gone on. Most recently, the Thursday night game where both teams were 7-7, and it was a de facto playoff game, if you could consider that, in front of the nation. And that was a hard-fought game where the Rams came up on top. And then there was all the games against Sean Payton's teams throughout the McVay era, and then even going back to the Fisher eras and beyond. But in total, if you don't want to count it up, Rams Nation, who's tuning in, we're 10-9 against the Saints since 2000. So this record split is pretty dang even, which off my initial thoughts, I wouldn't have thought it would be that close. I thought we'd be ahead by a little bit more, but things are pretty close, and I'm sure this game coming up won't be any different, truthfully, in terms of the closest and the nail-biter-ness that it'll have. But gentlemen, what are your quick thoughts on this Rams versus Saints history since the year 2000?
Seems like we've had some really interesting games with them, right? A lot of stuff happens in our games with the Saints. And I think one of those playoff games you mentioned, the Great O'Shawn Turf, I'm not going to pinpoint it exactly. We had a chance to win that. We forced a punt, and Hakeem fumbled, I think. And that was pretty much the end of it. And then the interception you talked about. And remember, these teams were divisional rivals back in the day, back in the good old days. And I think the Rams, I wouldn't say they dominated, but the Saints weren't very good back then. But yeah, it seems like a lot of interesting stuff happens when the Rams and Saints meet.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, they got the interim head coach fire now. So the Rams have got to be careful. They might be walking. You talk about a trap game. This might be one of those games. So they're 2-0, and teams they find that motivation they got to do one for the interim head coach. And there's always something about these interim special team coaches that always scare me when the Rams go in and play them.
Yeah, and then they'll probably make the mistake. I shouldn't say that, but I've never been a big fan of bringing the interim coach back as what the Raiders did, right? I think that could be a mistake, but that could very well be what happens with the Saints. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, if they beat us on Sunday, that reality becomes more possible, and hopefully we get a win. But based off this history, who freaking knows, right? And to that point, Rams at Saints coming up. Rams are 5-6. Wish we had a better record. Should have a better record. At the Saints, who are 4-7, and a lot of that has to do with injuries to their team overall. The record does not reflect how much better they've been playing with a healthier squad as they've been getting guys back. But Rams got killed by Saquon Barkley, and then Saints are coming off a bye. Oh, what great timing for this game to be a must-win game. And, they beat the Browns previously. Taysom Hill had an insane day, and they had a win right before that as well. So they're playing much, much better, which is not good for us. But with that said, gentlemen, we'll go through some of the Saints' best players real fast here. And these are all players, Rams Nation tuning in, that we agreed upon are some of their best players. So we'll start off real quick with inside linebacker Demario Davis. He's the linebacker who has the New Orleans shooter sleeve. He wears that one all the time. Very interesting pattern. The league doesn't find him, or maybe they do, but that's very distinct. I'm sure he'll be wearing it for this game we play up. So if you're not sure where he's at, find 56, who's got the crazy Saint sleeve, arm sleeve on, and he's fantastic. He's all pro level, Pro Bowl level, insane tackler. Pretty much every defense he's ever been a part of, he's been fantastic. So that's a player we definitely have to watch out for. No doubt about it. So hopefully our offense doesn't get smoked by him. Next player, which I think isn't a shock if you really think about it, it's got to be Taysom Hill here. I mean, dude's the ultimate Swiss Army knife, if you like that term. Dude would be a perfect football player for any version of professional football from 1960 and back, where everyone played every side of the ball, everyone caught passes, threw passes, everything. I mean, Taysom Hill is the reason why they were winning any games, truthfully, on the offensive side of the ball. Quarterback play, throwing it, taking handoffs in the backfield, lining up at tight end, lining up at the fullback H-back spot, whatever you like to call it, out wide, screens, kick return. I mean, dude is freaking insane. And everyone thought when Sean Payton left, he would be not as a factor or wouldn't be as good, excuse me. And that's just been not the case. Dude is a baller. And the last player, which should be no shock to anybody, is all-pro running back, Pro Bowl level running back, Alvin Kamara. Dude is filthy. Dude is elusive. He's got the swag of the Migos family, if that's all true and real, what you hear every now and then. And he's got paid accordingly for all his production and is such a damn good player. And shout out to Mark for adding this fun stat here with, his gained the most career scrimmage yards for the Saints with 11,273. So in case you were like, how good is Kamara? He's had some down years. Dude's still killing it. He'll go down in the Ring of Honor for the Saints. If he continues to have insane stats and yards, I mean, could he be Hall of Fame? Not arguing that, but you could have that conversation if he keeps producing year after year like he does. So those three guys, filthy. Kamara, filthy. And those are three players that we definitely have to worry about and watch out for sure. But we'll go through some other fun slides here with the Saints and everything going on there. So opened with 2 wins over the Panthers and Cowboys that we all saw, where everyone thought they were having the greatest offensive performance since the greatest show on turf. They were smoking people, dropping 50 burgers on everybody, it felt like. And it was like, holy crap. Then people started getting hurt. Injuries piled up. They weren't being insane on offense, and they lost 7 straight. Eagles, Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks, Chargers, Panthers. That got their head coach, Dennis Allen, fired after that loss to the Panthers, and they got replaced with their interim coach, Darren Rizzo, I like to say. And now they have some of that interim coach magic as they've won the last 2 games that we put on earlier, Falcons, and then had a convincing win where Taysom Hill had the game for the ages against the Browns a couple weeks ago. So, not a great time to be playing this team, knowing about it, but some of their offensive leader stats. Derek Carr missed a lot of time with an injury, but he's got 218 yards per game, 13 touchdowns, 4 INTs. Not bad for missing those 3 games. Kamara, we talked about, pretty dang good. And, the situation hasn't been the best this season, but he's still producing, in my opinion. Taysom Hill scoring touchdowns anywhere on the field. Kamara being their leading receiver. Olave and their other guys have just been getting just so dang hurt. Olave's got concussion issues. Their speedsters, all the wide receiver spots have had season-ending injuries. It's been pretty dang brutal for them offensively with all the talent that has been dipping, which is why they aren't scoring 40-plus points a game anymore like they were earlier in the season. And I know it says Eagles defensive leaders. That's a typo on our end. Apologies. But Brian Breesy and others on that D-line are playing pretty dang good. They've got 4.5 for him, 5.5 there. Demario Davis has 79 tackles. Tyrann Mathieu, you can't forget his all-pro, Pro Bowl level days. He's still playing good. Paulson, Adebo, 3 INTs apiece for both of them. I think that secondary is playing pretty dang good as a whole. And here's some other fun stats with the Saints offense. So yards per game, a lot of that's skewed with the earlier games, but they still are producing 11th. They're rushing. They're a top 10 unit. Doesn't bode well for us, as we've talked about. 217 yards passing per game, more bottom tier due to injury and their quarterback play being 24 points per game, not bad. They've had a lot of big, score games as we talked about. And Saints defense, I know the yards per game looks very, very ugly, but outside of their games where they haven't had good quarterback play and their defense has been on the field just all the dang time, right? When Spencer Rattler isn't out there underperforming, they've been exposed to a lot. But when things have gone well, they played pretty dang good. So some of these defensive stats, them being on the bottom tier, are misleading based off what I've seen from the film, truthfully. And our offense is meh. We pass a lot, but shocker, we don't win much. So whoop-de-doo that we're 9th there. Everything else is bottom tier. Rams defense, as Paul, pointed out earlier, everything's pretty much bottom tier after multiple games of just being smoked. And not the greatest. But before we get the keys to victory,
I just
Anyone
wanted
have
to
thoughts on
say,
this? Yes, please.
yeah, I just wanted to say we are actually climbing the ladder in our defense yards per game given up passing, but that's what happens when the opposition runs for over 300 yards. So
Yeah, it's brutal, dude. Absolutely brutal. And before we get to those keys of victory, let's take a look at the total team as a whole really fast. So we have the offensive starters for the Saints, and these are who is currently available, right? Marquez Valdez-Scantling coming over from the Bills, where that didn't work out. He's starting to produce for them. All their other offensive linemen who have been playing much better in recent weeks. You got Foster Monroe, the big tight end target. Taysom Hill, tight end, but pretty much everything that you can line him up as. Carr, Kamara, they do use a fullback from their time. It was Sean Payton. They still have him deployed. Adam Prentice, if I'm saying his name correctly. Sorry about that. And then defensively, a unit that, again, doesn't get much respect, but in my opinion, has some pretty dang good players. I believe, leading off with Demario Davis here, as I pull this up real quick. You get Demario, Tyron, Will Harris, Kool-Aid McKinstry, if everyone remembered his time with the Giants and other places. Willie Gay, Pete Werner, Cameron Jordan, who's still there. Feels like he's been playing my entire life. And then you have all the others, Chase Young, Carl Granderson, Kalen Saunders, Nathan Shepard. I mean, a unit that can play good football and has been playing good football against teams with some decent offenses that they've been facing. So, we had some things to worry about, gentlemen, in my opinion. So,
it seems like Matthew's been around for 2 decades, I swear.
Yeah, heck yeah. But that's all that real quick about that Saints team. But let's get to the keys to victory. What the heck do the Rams need to do to win this freaking game? We pointed out their best players. We showed the stats. We pointed out their roster and how things are skewed and maybe not representing how good they actually are, despite some big injuries to their offense. We'll start with you, Paul. What are the things the Rams need to do offensively and defensively and special teams that will lead them to a victory in New Orleans on Sunday afternoon?
So before I go into that, first thing, shout out to Darren Rizzi, the interim head coach. He has his roots in northern New Jersey, so shout out to Beast Coast. Also, he does have a connection to the Rams, right? But the Rhode Island Rams, because that's where he did his college studies, and he did a little coaching there as well. But also shout out to Beast Coast, Rutgers. He was a special teams coordinator 2003 to 2007. Always got to rep the Scarlet Knights. So, so one thing I will say about this is that the New Orleans Saints are a physical team. We talk about some of their top players. You can take certain elements, what should have been the Philadelphia game plan, and keep it in place for this New Orleans game. Have to stop Kamara. He's a little bit under 1,200 total yards. He's already got 7 TDs. He's a dual threat. You have to stop Kamara. Put it on Carr to beat you, right? And I agree. And nothing against their wide receiver core. Obviously, they're hurt. They're banged up, right? They're thin. Force them to beat you, right? Make them go to what they do second best as opposed to what they do best, right? So if they get out to Kamara and Hill's a physical player. That's the last thing you want, particularly with these Rams tackling situation. The last thing you want to do is him getting the ball out in space and running people over. So I think that's the key aspect on. And one of the major failings in the Eagles game was they were using that cheetah defense almost like a bear front, Ram Nation. So what they were trying to do is that NASCAR setup, which was to get after the passer, they were trying to use it as almost like a quasi bear front, right? And it really isn't. But so what they have to do is get back to what they do well. That they have to keep Rose Boom in. When they go single linebacker, it's got to be Boom. There's no question about it. It has to be Boom when they go single linebacker. But they have to go back to what they were doing well. They had 3 units. They had a base unit, a nickel unit, and a dime unit, and they have to go back to that because they were faring, in my opinion, much better when they were in that type of look. So the other thing is they cannot get sucked into that same type of rotation where Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner are off the field that frequently. Whatever the situation is, they have to work on this as a team. They have to find their ability to stop the run. Ray Lewis has said it all the great ones have said it. The way you measure the toughness and heart of a team is in their run defense and in their running game. Bottom line, whether you're a running team or not, it does not matter. The heart and toughness of your team will always be measured via the run, because that's how you establish the line of scrimmage. So that's something the Rams have to embrace. And this concept, because that's why I was saying for many weeks, this defensive pressure rate is misleading, because if you're running upfield and letting Jalen Hurts run underneath you for first downs, then it doesn't really matter that you're getting pressure, because that's what Jalen Hurts wants, right? We saw that 4 times in the Eagles game. You have to be disciplined in what you're doing. So the Rams have to get back to playing good fundamental defense, which means gap discipline, controlling the line of scrimmage, setting the edge, the concept of force and spill. They have to play that. When they play that in a disciplined fashion, they're not as bad as this Eagles game showed. They can sort of hold it together. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can carry over many elements from that Philadelphia game and say, look, we did a terrible job against Philly. Let's get better in this. They got to get back to that cheetah as their NASCAR defense. That is not a bare front. It does not play well against the run. I understand what they're trying to do. The team looked confused when they did it. You could tell Omar wasn't used to it. I'm sure they practiced it, but the guy simply didn't have enough reps. And he looked lost out there. He wasn't throwing the body around. He wasn't reacting as quickly as he was in previous weeks. Offensively, I think they got to run the ball. The Saints are a sneaky, dangerous team. Let me tell you this, Ram Nation. They have a top 10 red zone offense and a top 10 red zone defense. So that taking everything else away, when that field gets compressed, you want to know why that red zone offense all of a sudden becomes top 10? Because they run the ball. They run it right at you, right? And Kamara out of the backfield is dangerous on defense. Let me tell you something. Demario Davis, can you imagine him on our defense? One-man wrecking crew. That dude is severely beast mode, man, when he gets rolling. So on defense, they want to force you to kick field goals. And I hope Cardi does get a chance to get off the schneid, man, because that's rough. I feel bad for the kid, man, and that's why a lot of NFL teams do this, Ram Nation. It's not a knock against Cardi. They always say, when you draft a kicker, it's tough in the NFL. There's a lot of pressure. You have to be willing to bite the bullet that first season, right? It's rare when rookie kickers really thrive. But I hope he gets a chance to get off the schneid and maybe get a couple of kicks in there close up.
No, I hope so too. What about you, Mark? What are your keys to victory? Offense, defense, and special teams?
Well, defense, we need to play better against the run, especially. Now, last year, different team, of course. We shut down Kamara pretty well. 9 carries for 19 yards. Kyron ran 22 carries for 104 yards. I'm not sure how much that matters, but we have shut him down before. And I'm hoping that, this defense does feel a little embarrassed, and they're going to come rocking and socking in New Orleans. As far as the offense goes, we've been saying it for 2 months. We need to run the ball. We need to diversify the playbook. We need to get the tight ends involved. And I've kind of given up on that. I don't think they're going to. It's just not happening. So all we can really hope for, and the Rams, the one advantage the Rams have in this game is their pass offense matches up fairly well against the Saints' pass defense. So let it fly. Block. Let's protect Stafford. Throw the ball to Puka and DeMarcus and Kupp, yards after the catch. And that's what they're going to do. We just have to accept it at this point, I guess. I hope that they establish the run and get Kyron rolling, but I don't know. I'm just I've kind of given up on the wish list we have. Maybe McVay will prove us wrong this week. But hey, at least we have a great quarterback and some really good receivers. Let's make it work this week.
And to add to Mark's point, Mark's bringing up a good point. So look, if they've already cracked the top 10 in the passing offense. So if you want to throw the ball to wide receivers, go right ahead. The Rams got a wonderful wide receiver room. But here's the thing: you have to keep your tight end in to block. Right? The Rams are very lucky Stafford's season did it, and Graham could have absolutely ended his season. right? So, and what's interesting, Graham actually had a season-ending injury in that Ram game. He tore his pec. So he didn't even finish the game, but he could have cleaned Stafford's clock. He came in right around McClendon, and he took it easy on him. So thank you for that, Graham. But they have to help McClendon. They cannot leave him naked like that. He is struggling against speed rushers. He's a great run blocker. To me, I think moving forward, he's going to be a great guard depth for them. At guard, that kid will definitely play well. No question about it. But they cannot leave him on an island. They have to keep the tight end into block. And if they're going to do that, they got to get Kyron out into the route. So to be that fourth receiver.
You brought up a good point, something that we haven't talked about. Are we expecting Havenstein back for this game?
No.
Well, I'll get into my keys based on some of that knowledge. So McVay said that it's more likely than not that Havenstein should be ready to go, but is he going to be 100%? If I had to bet money, you're not off an ankle. You might be good enough to play, but are you feeling good to anchor that foot in the ground and drive people away from your quarterback and drive people into the dirt on run plays? Not so sure about that. And then on the injury report, we see Alaric Jackson didn't practice due to some foot injury of some sort. So we're ways away from getting the final, like, are both of them going to play or not? But I'm going to act like Havenstein's going to play it, but not be 100%. And I'm going to act like Alaric Jackson's not going to play this game based on what I'm going to say right now with the keys of victory. To your point about wishful thinking, if the Rams don't do this wish list that I've been very angry about for 2 months, like you mentioned, and we've been pissed off about, they're losing this game. No doubt about it. They do not be diverse like the 49er game, if they are not diverse like the Vikings game, if they are not diverse like the Patriots game. Isn't it a shock that all those games the Rams put up serious points when they were diverse in the playbook, different personnel groupings, all that stuff that I've rambled on about? If they do not do it this game, they're not doing jack tilly squat on offense unless the O-line magically pass protects beautifully all of a sudden, which what have they shown us to make us think that that's going to be the case? Nothing. So that's my keys to offense. McVay's got to have a good game plan, diversify against a good defense. And again, that's beating a dead horse, it feels like, and it'll probably continue to feel like the whole season, rest of the season. But if they don't do that, they got no shot, and we'll see another maybe 2 touchdowns in a field goal game under 20 points. It'll just be another blame everybody other than the coaching staff, which I know a lot of our fan base likes to do, but it's time to start putting blame on the coaching staff more often than not. So that's keys to victory on offense. Keys to victory on defense is anytime Taysom Hill is in the game, double him. Dedicate more bodies to him, because other than him, and I get Marcus Valdes-Scalen's pretty dang fast, but he's a one-trick pony, truthfully, based on his route running skill set. He'll go deep downfield as long as we have, a decent up top safety to run with them or get a head start. We should be okay. Everything is about Taysom Hill right now, and Alvin Kamara, of course, but they're kind of one and the same in terms of their production and but because Taysom lines up everywhere, wherever he's at, he needs to be the focal point of stopping. Out wide, tight end, wildcat taking the snap and running it from there. I mean, wherever he's at, he needs to be doubled, because he's the guy that'll torch us in the passing game, receiving, and any other trick play, anything like that. So that, and then, of course, Kamara stop his running ability as well. But I think Taysom Hill is the key to beating the Saints defensively. If he has a decent day, we're in bad shape. If he has a great day, then forget about it, right? You get blown out like the Browns did a couple weeks ago. So that's key. And then special teams, I need to see better punts from Ethan Evans. I mean, the last games, it hasn't been bad, but I haven't seen that booming leg we've seen in previous weeks or even last season. So I definitely got to see him pin the opposing offense way back into their territory, more than what we've seen these past, month or so, truthfully. And then Cardi, whatever the hell's going on with him, and I know McVay said they've had good conversations, and he's not getting benched or cut or not bringing in competition to one way or the other sway him downwards or upwards or lift him up. But the dude's got to make the makeable kicks. It's flustering me thinking about it, just how we're in this position again with kickers. So get him in a good spot, 40 and under, and then later in the game, if it requires deeper field goals, hopefully not, then we can get him going. But if it's nothing from 40 close, go for it on offense, because this dude's, his kicking swagger is gone right now. It's gone. So how do you get that back? Get close as you can to the red zone and let him kick from there. If he makes a few, hopefully he doesn't have to make that many. We score touchdowns. Then we can start elevating him to say, okay, now we're a little farther back. All right, Cardi, go hit that 47-yarder. Go hit that 53-yarder that we know you can do. And I think that's very key for special teams. So Evans got to punt better, and then build Cardi's confidence up with shorter kicks if possible. And then if bigger ones are needed later, then you can summon him to hit those as the confidence boost. But, God, gentlemen, I feel like it's the same crap every week, and we just don't see changes. Or we do see a change, and we're like, yes, this is what needs to happen. And then the next week, we completely fold on it, and we don't do it again. But, yeah, frustrating.
I think that there's an interesting wrinkle on defense, which I'm surprised that they haven't really utilized in the past couple of weeks. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on it, is that they're not really bringing a lot of pressure from the edge like they used to bring. They used to send Curl. They sent Durant a couple of times from the slot, or Lake from the slot. You don't really see that anymore. And I think that's what's happening, is like teams are able to prep for them fairly easily, because there's nothing really, like, there's no mystery to what's going to happen. So there's one thing if you do it really well, yeah, absolutely. Right? People can know what you're going to do, and you just impose your will upon them. But I don't think the Rams D is there yet. They got to send Curl. They got to send whether it's Lake or Durant. Look at that Vegas game, man. That Vegas game, that worked really, really well. And they sort of got away from that. And everything's been up the middle, right? Which is fine. But so that's one thing that I would love to see, is a little bit more from the edge. And also that helps with the run D. That's a nice way to help with the run D, is to send the pressure from the edge. The other thing is, if they're sending these players, this is definitely a coaching scenario. The players that are rushing up the middle, whether you get there or not, you have to put your hands up. You have to disrupt the vision of the quarterback. That's one of the advantages of coming up, rushing up the middle, right? When you're in those inner lanes, those A's and B lanes. So you have to put your hands up. They're not, and they are not obstructing the vision of the quarterback, and the quarterback is throwing right over them to the open receiver. So that's another thing that they really have to adjust. I think those two big adjustments could make a big difference in this game, because they can be aggressive against these New Orleans wide receivers, in my opinion. That's what I think they should do. Be aggressive against these New Orleans wide receivers, like we've been talking about, and then, clamp down on Kamara and Hill, do the best you can with that, and you got to tackle. You have to tackle, right? No matter who you play, if you don't tackle, they're going to look like world beaters.
True. Very, very true. And with that said, Rams Nation, as the keys to victory seem to be the same very often around this channel, but Rams aren't doing it. Shocker. They continue to lose and look bad, and it feels like every other game. But with that said, we got to give our early score predictions here, and we know it's early in the week. We talked about the possible injuries of guys playing or not playing, and we get all that. There might be guys for the Saints that are unavailable that do end up being available, vice versa. We know all that. But here on this roundtable, we like to give you a score based on everything we talked about today. So we'll start with you, Mark. What is your early score prediction? Rams win or Rams lose? What do you think?
I think the Rams are the better team. They just have to get their act together.
Yes, yeah.
I have a lot of faith in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford getting it done. I think the defense is going to be fired up to try to prove something. It's going to be, if you had asked me, 2 months ago or even a month ago, I was kind of like, okay, this is a W. We go to New Orleans. This is a W. I don't feel that way anymore. It's pretty a coin flip game, but I'm picking the Rams, and I'm going to go with 27-24.
27-24. Well, I hope our offense is able to put up some points like that, because golly, man, it's been such a struggle. But I do hope that is closer to reality than what we've seen in the past. So I hope you're freaking right on that. Paul, what is your early score prediction on this Rams up roundtable that we got today?
I think Coach Burns stumbled upon the answer. This unit, whether it's offense or defense, the Rams are just not fired up. They come into every game, they are flat. You had the greatest show on turf, being honored at SoFi. You play a game like that,
Yeah, I know.
right? You go into Detroit with your boy Stafford wanting that win, and you let him down not once but twice. Teams got to like step up, man. There's no heart. They do not understand like the ramifications of some of these things, and that's I think Mark hit the nail on the head. They got to find a way to get themselves fired up and play their brand of football, play some smash mouth football. I think they're going to stay true to their trend. I think it's going to be a one-score game. It's going to be 24-17. I think they'll struggle a little bit with the physicality of New Orleans, especially some of their key players. But I think in the end, I think it's going to come down to Staff and King Cup and Puka Yakua.
Yeah, I hope that's what will happen too. And I think my score will be no shock to anyone who watches us regularly. I mean, what the hell has this offense done for me to pick them to win a freaking game? Sincerely, I'm picking the Rams to lose 17-24 in a upset by many of the experts out there from NFL.com and wherever else. As we know, the Saints team is depleted, but what has this offense done consistently the entire year to make me feel like all of a sudden they're going to turn it on? And we've seen them turn it on, but I don't believe it until I see it consistently. And I picked them to get smoked against Philadelphia last week, and I was hoping I was wrong, but it ended up being the case. And I expect this loss to happen, and it'd be by one score. I'm not expecting some ass kicking. And let's just say the Rams do win, which I'm hoping for. Let's not get that twisted. I am hoping for, a win, but the win will probably be one score as well. But I'm picking this team to have another dud against a defense who is talented. And like Mark said earlier, do we really expect them to make any changes? Probably not. I'm hopeful because it's the season is riding on these next month and some change of games. But I can't objectively, logically pick them to win based on all the film that I watch and all that and say things are just going to suddenly turn a corner. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm picking them to lose this game.
Can't blame you, really. Totally understand.
They need a bounce back game from Iron Kyren. Do not shy away from giving that kid the rock, man. He will step up. And Staff, I think Staff's gonna, he's going to do his thing. Puka's gonna have a great game as always. King Cup's gonna be clutch as always. They just gotta lean on their boys, but they cannot shy away from that run game. They need that run game to keep Stafford like alive. Otherwise, they're just gonna pin their ears back and come after him again. And listen, like I said, Stafford's very lucky to come out of that Philadelphia game unscathed.
Yeah, and let's not forget about real quick. Let's not forget about the last time we were in a weird situation in New Orleans. Stafford had that spinal contusion injury where everyone was questioning his future. So, it was the last time we saw Allen Robinson as a Ram. Last time we saw Stafford that season. So like you mentioned earlier, Mark, a lot of just crazy bullshit happens against the Saints. And hopefully this game is not one of those where things just go, Spelton in the NFL, X-Files, Twilight Zone, things happen.
I seem to, was it in New Orleans that Tutu had that long touchdown that came out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Right.
It was 2022, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about Derek Carr is an interesting quarterback. I have a lot of respect for his talent. He can just light it up, but he is prone. It seems like, especially against the Rams, it seems like every time he's played against the Rams, he's had at least one really big bonehead play. So maybe he'll commit another one Sunday.
I'm hopeful, Rams Nation. I'm hopeful because we all know what's at stake. A playoff spot, this core of Rams players sticking together or not based on this game and beyond. But it all starts with one, as we know. Win one, then we focus on the other and win that one, and so forth and so forth. Is it doable? Absolutely. Can they do it? I believe they can. Will they do it? Well, that's why we watch the games and hope hope for the best. But man, oh man, gentlemen, before we get out of here, Paul, any last thoughts?
Keeping with the theme of the greatest show on turf, the Rams are going to the home of Marshall Faulk, right? Channel that energy. For those of you that don't Ram Nation, he used to work in the Dome, and he used to sell concessions, and he said he was terrible. He almost got fired a couple times because he would watch the game and not sell anything. But you're going to the House of Faulk, and so be inspired, play like a star, play like the baller that he was. So come together as a team and show some Ram pride.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Last thoughts?
Hey, just one last comment on Turkey Day, my favorite holiday. Make sure you enjoy it. Be safe. Have fun. We have a cool little Thanksgiving quiz for you, Rams-related Turkey Day quiz for you, popping up in the morning. My son will be at the game in New Orleans, so I'll be getting reports from him. He's going out there for the boys' weekend and catching the game with his buddy who's a Saints fan, and another guy who's a 49ers fan. They're dragging him along for some reason. And but yeah, just enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll have a post-game reaction after the game.
Yes, we
Sunday.
will. Yes, we will. And welcome again for everyone tuning in late. Rams Up Roundtable with me, Ian. That's Mark. That's Paul. We're the Rams Up crew. And we very much appreciate all the likes, subscribes, shares, and continue to do that with all your fellow Rams fans and football fans out there. So that'll do it here. We're hoping for a Rams win against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday afternoon, and hopefully everyone has some good Turkey Day leftovers they can eat up watching a hopeful Rams W. Like the former Saint Jameis Winston, like I say, is going to eat those W's up, and I hope we can eat some of those up in New Orleans too. So that'll do it here. Thanks for tuning in, and we're hopeful for some good news on that post-game reaction on Sunday. Peace.
Family is everything. Shout out to the Ram fam.
All right, out here.